everybody. Thanks for joining us. This is the second panel of the day, Saturday, August 31st, second day of NFT MSP. We are here on a panel today with John Krashalski, Elizabeth Kukka from Profit for Purpose, and John Hayden.
Wait, what's your name again?
I think we got them all switched up, but it's all good. I'm Matt from Conflux, and that is John.
Yeah.
Can we start over, actually?
No, it's on the blockchain. You'll never get rid of it.
Here's the truth. We had a few speakers not be able to make it. This was actually going to be a tax, finance, and business, which for the most part is going to remain that. But given the space of crypto and Web3, it's a little bit of a Wild West right now. So I think the panel and the way we're rolling with it is going to be it's natural for this space. So we've got three other panelists. My name is Chris Peterson. I'm one of the organizers of the event. I'm the founder of the Order of the Egonauts NFT project, which I hope you will all join, by the way, now or after this event, as well as Highway 55 Rental and Local Ties Media, and Medina Ventures, which we are building the first Web3 friendly facility out in Medina. I bring these things up because John Hayden over here, I'm going to throw some things at him a bit later. And now I'm losing my train of thought. Why doesn't everybody introduce themselves?
I'll go first.
Yeah.
First, I want to thank you for the PlayStation. That was very kind.
Yes, actually, that was for you. Quantum Lex, it says your name on the back.
Thank you. Oh, okay. Thank you. I'll say it again. Thanks for the PlayStation. All right. So I'm John Hayden. I'm an attorney with Quantum Lex. We're a law firm. Myself and John Nevy. John Nevy started it just right as I was finishing law school. And we met at a blockchain event at a Twins game where I actually met many of the people in this room. And kind of hit it off, and we're like, hey, we're both interested in blockchain. We're both in emerging industries. Let's start working together. So I joined him officially in May, and we have a stable of blockchain clients, Bitcoin mining clients, energy clients, as well as other emerging industries like cannabis and other crazy Wild West stuff. And so I'm HODL the future on X. I won't even say formerly known as, because it's been that long. So if you want to follow me, you will see all sorts of degenerate lawyer takes. And I think that's why I'm here today, is I'm part degenerate, part attorney. Nothing today is legal advice or tax advice.
I think that's a really good start. Elizabeth, you want to?
I'm going to try to keep up with your positive, good attitude and energy. I'm a bit more dry and boring. So Liz Kukka, CEO at Purpose for Profit. We are a blockchain impact company raising a tokenized charitable fund to provide low-interest loans to businesses building affordable and workforce housing. I've worked in the space full-time since 2018 and have seen a lot, and happy to chat about kind of the pros and cons and what I've seen over the years.
Hi, everyone. My name is Matt. I am the head of incubated project marketing for Conflux Network. For those of you who don't know, Conflux Network is the only regulatory compliant blockchain in China. So we're very well known outside of the US, and it's my job here to talk about the ecosystem and to introduce people about other blockchains around the world. Prior to joining Conflux, I was in the traditional finance space. So happy to talk about how finance and crypto all kind of blends together.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody, for introducing themselves. And Quantum Lex, I know you were one of the first people when we started talking about this event we reached out to. I think Matt Kramer did, and we really appreciated you guys rolling with us through it all and coming through. And it sounds like I didn't even know some of the things you just talked about. So I'd actually like to kick it off by I'd introduce some of the companies I am a part of or founded. And as an entrepreneur in a lot of different spaces, I think the legal side of things is always some of the scariest parts, right? You've got this great idea. You think, I'm going to go and do it like this. And then you find out that maybe you need a patent, or maybe you need to file as an S Corp versus a C Corp versus, and how do you raise money? And I've been going through even raising money right now for our facility we're building out in Medina. And so I think in this space, especially when you already have such a complicated, we'll call it, corporate business, world that makes it a little convoluted. It feels like at times, especially for somebody who hasn't done it a lot, to come in and form a company, to have a company that's willing, or I should say, a firm that's willing to work in such a new industry where there's so little at this point, it seems, regulatory clarity. I'd like to hear some of your experiences in that space, in Quantum Lex, and kind of what you guys have experienced thus far, and what you guys think you can offer to this space, really, as the renegade attorneys.
Yeah, sure. So lawyers are like notorious for saying like it depends, and so in blockchain or in crypto, all we say is it really depends. That's pretty much what we do, because it's so gray in so many ways. But at the same time, it's very much like starting any business. It really is. And a lot of the people that come to me are saying, hey, I have got this idea, or hey, I've already started something, or hey, we probably should have come to you a lot earlier, but here's where we're at. And it's very much just picking your jurisdiction, talking about who are your partners, how do you want to structure, are you going to be a DAO? Are you looking to raise money? Those are some of the very fundamental questions for any startup. With a blockchain startup or someone who wants to lean into crypto, you might actually be looking at jurisdiction being a more important question, because of what their goals are, as far as you're instantly a global platform a lot of the time. It's not like you're popping up a donut shop, right? And so you are going to be touching a lot of jurisdictions. In the United States, I like to direct people, if you're going to incorporate, towards a friendly place. Wyoming seems to be really friendly. And so I lean into Wyoming a lot. That might be something that's kind of unique to the blockchain space. But very much similar to any startup. Hey, who are your partners? How do you, what's your goal? Are you looking to build a cash flowing business? Are you looking to get an MVP and sell it? What are you trying to do? And that's pretty much any startup. So just a little bit of nuance around some of the regulatory murkiness that's both on the federal and state level, but that really isn't part of the first conversations you're having. It's usually just about what's your operating agreement going to look like and where you're going to form.
So the intake is still traditional with Quantum Lex, but once you kind of get into the details of the nature of the business, you mentioned Wyoming, right? I think is it Cynthia Loomis who's represented from? Yeah, she's pretty fantastic for the space, right? Up until this point, I feel like Delaware was one of those companies that everybody forms, or states that everybody forms a company in because of their laws around piercing the corporate veil, something like that. Or,
so I'll brag. I'm going to brag. Elon Musk replied to one of my X posts.
What?
Yeah. And it was when he said, I'm never forming a company in Delaware again.
I saw that post.
And I responded to it like, you shouldn't be doing that anyways. I prefer Wyoming. The one issue with, capital and venture capitalists and angel investors, they haven't really caught up to that idea. Not all of them. Some of them have, I'm sure. But some of them really want to be in Delaware as like a precursor for them getting involved. And I made a tweet or an X post to that effect. And he responded, he's like, I'm never acquiring a company from Delaware again. I was like, oh, cool. So that is changing, I think, and it's because Wyoming has a tax-friendly environment and a crypto-friendly environment. They were a pioneer in DAO structure. And they're actually, I think, and they also have their own chancellery court similar to Delaware that's coming along. So it seems to be people are pivoting towards less complicated, less expensive, less invasive regulatory environments. And Wyoming seems to be one of those. There are others, Nevada, South Dakota, that's coming along. So yeah.
That's cool because I just formed 2 companies in Delaware, and
Smart. I can.
That's good. Good.
Start them over.
Yep.
You know, Delaware works just fine for most things.
Yeah, we'll see. I want to hear a little bit about your backgrounds. You said you were in traditional finance, and now you're working in China. What's up? What's your story?
It's a bit of a long story, but I was here at St. Thomas getting my MBA, and I happened to do a J term, travel abroad, went to China, spent some time in Beijing, Shanghai, Hong Kong, and all along the way we were meeting people, and we just happened to stay in contact, stay in touch, see what's going on every couple months. And in the meanwhile, I was doing an internship here at a local investment firm, Disciplined Growth Investors, and then from there, I was going to spin off, and I was doing my own foreign developing countries investment firm. And then something, I think you guys might have heard of it, COVID. You familiar with COVID? Yeah, that kind of hit. And so travel shut down, and that makes going to these nations a little difficult. So I had to shut that down. And as we were talking with some of the people back in China, they were saying, hey, we've got some things that we'd like to discuss. We've got some projects that are coming down, and they want to make sure that they've got some, solid English background. And so I started doing some just trivial English writing for them, and then I got more interest into the space because a lot of it was just based around like algorithmic stable coins and other types, because that's when stable coins were really starting to take off. And I got more involved and realized this is just like traditional finance. Everything is all related. And so I got more on board with working with the teams, and then some people from Conflux were there and appreciated that I was willing to speak up and speak my mind, because dealing with international projects, there's a lot of cultural issues. So very much in China, there's a lot of top-down messaging going on, whereas here we're a little bit more ground up. If your coworkers or people that you're responsible for have concerns or questions, you're going to be a little more receptive in listening to them. So they brought me on board, and I've been working with their incubated projects since. It's been 4 or 5 years now that I've been with Conflux in some form or manner with their decentralized exchanges and proof of staking projects. And still now, I just kind of help out other projects and stay in touch and make sure they're helping grow the ecosystem.
When you say the top-down approach, or how in the U.S., let's say more engagement with lower-level staff or just middle management, are you saying that they've brought you over to kind of help change that part of the culture or train the authoritarian regimes?
Well, no, nothing like that. No.
Kidding.
It's more of when someone has an idea, if it's coming from your boss, it may be, we want to go in this direction. We think for the tokenomics, we think it's fine if we liquidate people at this level. And normally it might be, okay, sure, yeah, let's go with it. Whereas, someone from the Western culture might say, but this might be a problem if X, Y, and Z comes about, and it might be better if we do it A, B, and C. So there's it's that little bit of feedback and challenging a narrative that is kind of important in any type of culture, business culture, because you can't just have someone giving ideas without any feedback. Otherwise, you may just kind of start going down a path that may or may not make sense for everyone else in the company.
Awesome. And I mean, that applies to everywhere, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, Liz, can I call you Liz? The nature of your business, I think, is really unique and applies to this in a whole different way. I know you talked about it on our last panel, or the one yesterday, but do you want to talk a little bit about what you do and kind of the relationship to the nonprofit world, but not necessarily nonprofit world, and then just give a little background, and I think we can tee off from there.
Yep, happy to. So we're a 501c3 and we're incorporated in Delaware. There's pros and cons of doing that. I would say the fact that we are incorporated in the US is very unusual for any project that has a token. And the reason why is because right now the US government is pretty much seeing all tokens in the US as securities, and we are an exempt security ourselves. And so what that means is that our token as long as it keeps that status, we cannot list on Coinbase or Kraken or Binance US because none of those exchanges can sell securities. So what that means is that we can only either sell because we're a 501c3, we can sell securities ourselves, which means we can sell our own token, which is amazing. And we can get into blue sky laws, which is a whole nother rabbit hole we can go down. We can also have folks list our token on a decentralized exchange or a DEX, which is helpful, but the liquidity is usually not great. We can sell through an alternative trading system or an ATS, which is like a broker dealer, which is not ideal because most people can't use those because you need to be an accredited investor. So that's not really our goal. And then the last option is through a wallet. And so if we have a wallet system, one is called Dynamic. If we have a wallet system in place where and our token's listed there, you can swap it for, say, Ethereum or USDC, and then you can exit that way. And so there's a lot of different things we can do, but it's a lot of like, the ideal is like get on an exchange, right? And like that's the ideal, and you can't do that right now if you list in the US because you're just going to be deemed a security right away. And so there's some benefits of, we want to be a 501c3, we're a charitable organization, we're dedicated to housing and housing availability for all people, and so that's really important to us. And so there's some pros and cons of being incorporated in the US. What a lot of organizations do is they have an offshore entity or an entity somewhere else that's going to be the owner of those tokens, so to speak, or the distributor of those tokens. And we're really trying to not go offshore, and we're really trying to stay in the US. So that's a little bit more about us.
And with your background, and I think since we're talking business, and you've been in, I know since I've known you, this isn't the first company you've been involved in. Can you tell us a little bit about the company you were at before and why you maybe went from that company to this company, and just a little bit about that journey? I think that's something that is interesting to hear, especially with who you have on the panel here.
Yeah, so long story, former public school teacher a million years ago got an impact MBA trying to figure out how do I bridge these two worlds of for-profit and nonprofit. How do we kind of make help these two worlds kind of talk to each other? And so that was the goal for me. And also, if you were here yesterday, a big interest of mine is data privacy and data ownership for the people, with transparency for any government organization or anybody that has a publicly listed, like does an IPO. And so anything that impacts the people should be available for all of us to see, but on our private lives, privacy is key in my opinion. So that's part of where I went down kind of the rabbit hole of blockchain. So public school teacher, impact MBA, and then 7 years in blockchain, doing everything from running an accelerator to helping launch a global hedge fund to launching a crypto custody business in South Dakota. I helped launch a fully regulated exchange in Abu Dhabi. It's kind of crazy thinking public school teachers now in the world of finance doing all kinds of, like, I look at myself and like, who is this person? Like, what happened? And so after doing all of this stuff in finance and also working in deep tech, I just kept asking every team I was on, how can we do impact? How can we get into sustainability? How can we help people? Because right now, everyone we're helping are people who are already pretty wealthy and they don't really need us. They can find money in a lot of other places. And so that's just kind of how I've slowly made my way back, is like, this is really what I'm here for. And so if I'm going to spend my time and attention on something, it should be something I really care deeply about. And so that's how I made my way to Purpose for Profit.
Do you think that you talk about housing, and I think that's a really big piece. We always complain about the cost of living or inflation, the cost of tuition, right? But we don't talk about why is tuition so expensive. Right? We don't say, well, the cost of information has gone down, yet somehow everything is more expensive, and we're looking at the cost rather than the value. With housing, what do you think it is about housing, or why is that such a critical piece of this infrastructure, and how do you think focusing on that piece related to crypto, 5 years from now, let's say, your organization is succeeding at what it's doing, what does it look like? What does that look like?
Yeah, well, a little bit of back information on housing. So in the U.S. right now, we have a shortage of 7 million affordable units, which a lot of people don't know that. And 50% of people are paying more than they can afford for housing. And so it's a big deal. And it's estimated by 2050, over 50% of us are going to need affordable housing. So it's a massive issue. And housing additionally affects your economic future, it affects your education, it affects your health. And so all of those things are big indicators when it comes to housing. So it's an issue that I think is worth paying attention to. I also think it's a human right that we should all have a roof over our heads. And so for that reason alone, I think it's a really big deal. And so the reason why blockchain, one, because I don't know how to do anything else anymore, and so it has to. So it's like, this is my world, and so like, why would I do it in Web 2? Because I don't even know what that means anymore. It's like, this is my home. That's one reason. But one, we can package our loans in NFTs. And so if you were an investor, you wanted to participate in one of these loan options, getting a 5% APY, you'd have it packaged as an NFT. You would see all of the terms and all of the payment schedules packaged there, and then you could sell it yourself. You don't have to go through us. That's part of the big piece, is that you're the owner of your investment, and you can do what you will with it. You can hold on to it, get your returns, or you could sell it to somebody. You don't have to go through us. And so this is a perfect use case, we think, or one of many. Additionally, all loans made are on-chain. We use Circle APIs for that. Payments received are on-chain, and our underlying assets are on-chain. We're a nonprofit, and so transparency is really, really key, because we're essentially kind of like a public good. So again, if it's public, we think it should be available for everyone to be able to see and track and monitor.
So Liz, do you do, is it commercial loans, residential, workforce housing? Multifamily.
Yeah. We're just getting started.
What size loans are we talking about?
Yeah, so we're looking at 500,000 to $1 million range at construction, bridge loans at construction. So if we were earlier in the stack, working with real estate instead of construction, we would be tiny in the stack. I mean, you have like $10 million developments, $100 million developments. Our checks would be so small that we would get diluted pretty quickly, number one, and we wouldn't have a lot of negotiating power. Like if we wanted interest rates to come down to be more helpful, we don't really have a say. And we'd get paid out 3 to 5 years later. When you do bridge construction, these are like 3 to 6 months terms. We can also help folks get their money back faster as they're lending.
Refinancing.
Yeah, and refinancing, exactly. Yeah.
Got to talk after this. I got something for you.
Just wanted to second that once you get involved in crypto, it's hard to imagine doing anything else. You really get lost in the world.
Sorry, I'm
You're just a teenager
yeah.
on your phone.
Not yeah. I actually have an 8 and a 6-year-old, and my parents are trying to get in a hotel room that the key's not working, and here we are. And then I just got a message from somebody in the city of Medina. I'm actually running for Medina City Council to try to bring blockchain, and I just got a message of a picture of the 2 candidates I'm running against for 2 spots. There's 3 of us that they're both teamed up together, so which I anticipated. I think tax, finance, business, all of these pieces in the space of crypto, sitting on this panel, I wanted to role play out a scenario with you, John, as somebody that is coming in, and it can be pretty authentic because I'm probably going to come through your door and ask these questions. So I've had an NFT project, the Order of the Egonauts, for the last couple of years. I'm not the majority owner, but I own a majority enough of it, right? So I'm one of the largest. It's built on a smart contract that was built when we launched in February of 2022. The wallets are all set when one is minted, and I have control of the keys. I push a button, it distributes, that money goes out to those wallets. Doesn't matter who is still participating, who isn't, it's all set. Also building this facility here out in Medina. Our membership is related, the Egonauts is related to IRL utility, which we've obviously are showing here at this event, I think. But also, as we move forward, this project isn't incorporated as a company. And saying that out loud right now on a live stream.
I don't know.
Now I pay taxes on it, right? We show where all the money goes. I'm not hiding from anything, but I'm wondering, how do I take, and I know I'm not the first and I won't be the last person to ask this question, how do you take a project like ours, an NFT project, and make it, we'll call it,
Legit,
right? I mean, it's legit, but it's not, it's that the government doesn't.
Where you're getting at. I hear what you're getting at. So it's like, first of all, you are legit. You're a partnership. If you want to, churn that into an LLC for some legal protection or whatever. I think the problem is in this industry, people think it's more complicated than it needs to be because of the whole digital asset component. They think that things are going to be a security or, somehow it's different. And the problem is Gary Gensler has complicated that by calling lots of things like OpenSea got a Wells notice this week. Like, come on, come on. Anything can be any asset, whether it's oranges or a digital token or Starbucks or a t-shirt. Any asset could be part of a contract or transaction that is considered an investment contract or a security. Right? Just because something is digital does not mean it's more likely to be a part of an investment contract, right? You have to look at the underlying transaction. And the reason I'm talking about this is people think it's more complicated than it is. And if you look at the Ripple ruling, the judge in that case did a really good job differentiating between the same asset, right, XRP, being sold in different contexts, right? If I start a company and I have some NFTs, right, and I go to some other people that I need to get some cash from, and I said, hey, I'll sell you some of these NFTs pre-launch, and I'll sell them to you at a discount. And let me tell you, in 5 years, here's my roadmap. Here's where it's going to be. I expect the value of these NFTs to be a lot more because of the work that I'll be putting into this company. And I'll sell you 20% of these right now for this X. That transaction could very likely be considered a security, right? It's an investment contract. It's me and you. You have an expectation of profit. You're giving me some money with the expectation of profit for my work, right?
Yeah.
That could be.
Yeah.
And just because there's an NFT part of that, has nothing to do with being a digital asset, right? Now, that same NFT, and this is what Ripple said, that same NFT or same digital asset, if I go and sell in an open market programmatically, the person who's buying it doesn't even know they're buying it from the company. They're just buying it on a decentralized exchange, right? There's no contract between me and that person. Therefore, it can't be a security because they don't know who I am. You don't know, there's no expectation of profit. There's no underlying terms, right? Mm-hmm. This is just an open sale of an asset. And the judge just did a great job defining that. It's also different to give it to your employees as payment, right? That's another way. It's just because it's a digital asset does not make it a security, right? And with this Wells notice to OpenSea, all right, technically you could put a security or an investment contract into an NFT. You could. And it very well could be. And if OpenSea is not looking at their marketplace, most of them are memes and weird communities. Most of them are rugs, let's be honest. Like if you looked at my wallet, I would cry. Just pure garbage, right? Yeah. If Gary Gensler looked at my wallet, I would go to jail. But not because of securities, it's just bad taste. It's just poor investment choices, right? But the point of this is there very well could be. Your business, if you came to me, it's possible that the structure by which you distributed your NFTs and your assets could fall under some analysis that would make it an investment contract, which could complicate your business. But it's actually pretty unlikely. It's more likely that you're just selling collectibles and you're a business that has business needs just like anyone else.
Well, I want you to tap in here, Matt, for just a sec, but I want to touch on that too, because a lot of the space, it's pumping things up. It's talking about utility. There's the idea of a security in general. What does that even like? So we're saying that everybody reads all the fine print when they go and invest in a public company or all these, as if for a project like ours, we don't provide any sort of guarantee of any financial return. It's a membership, and it's a membership even to what? I mean, so with what you're saying about Gary Gensler, do you think that as the regulation starts to change, do you foresee you guys, Quantum Lex or just, firms like yours working with you guys, do you think that we're going to see a new infrastructure that's going to allow us to make things easier? Or do you think it's going to just create more, let's call it opportunities for firms like yours to be able to skirt around rules that we know are the real reason for them is just to make more money for, frankly, attorneys, the
Listen, we
the
don't
insurance
skirt the
companies.
rules at Quantum
I mean,
Lex.
but I mean, really, like when you look at what's the intent of all of this, it's to protect investors, right? What were the investors protected in 2008? When shit happens, right? So to me, I'm just trying to figure out with our project even, is it worth trying to legitimize ourselves or watching stuff go down with Gary Gensler, watching the things happening in the public space and in the political space? Are we just, from what I can tell, they only go after the ones that make it really big, and then they start to pay attention to them.
That's not necessarily true. There was a library. I don't know if anyone remembers the library coin. They're pretty small. They got like dunked on, and people are like, "Why them? Like you have these juggernauts, right? Why are you going after them?" So I encourage anyone to get legit because as you push to become legit, you will. In the process of doing that, refine and deliver the best product and ensure success, right? Don't go rogue. There are people that come to me that have been doing stuff for a long time off the radar and now are just trying to get it together. And I tell them, here's what needs to happen. And then they just kind of disappear, right? And you never hear from them, they never make it, right? So I always encourage people, go legit. Like, yes, there's not a lot of clarity on a federal level in many respects, but that's probably not going to impact you most of the time.
Sure.
You can keep moving ahead. So yeah, go.
And we will with you. I look forward to working with you.
I hope you're billing them for this. So I just want to point out a couple of things, though, real quick, is that I need to give our judicial system a lot of praise because these judges in these cases have go in admitting they know absolutely nothing about the space, and they have been listening to a lot of the industry experts to actually make their decisions on. And I think that's been key, especially in the Ripple case. And in fact, they even reprimanded the SEC in the Coinbase case just because of the attacks and the procedures that they've been going through. So our judicial system, unfortunately, has had to do a lot of heavy lifting, and that's very, very usual for the SEC. It doesn't matter if it's crypto, any type of security. That's just the SEC's modus operandi is to sue first, make policy later. It's very unfortunate. The other thing, at least a ray of hope, is that we have not had an SEC chairman repeat to be in office for more than 4 years in over 30 years. I think it was Bill Clinton's that had a repeat SEC. So trend's holding, and again, trend is not indicative of future performance, but we're probably going to see a change no matter who comes into office next year. So hopefully that's a positive. But I know our DEX is watching with pins and needles, looking at what happens in the Uniswap case, because that is going to be crucial to how the entire industry of DeFi moves forward. And if we get a bad situation there, then you're going to see the entire crypto space potentially collapse, because without DeFi, you really don't have decentralization. The other thing I wanted to point out was the Chevron case that was just overturned by the Supreme Court. That is going. I think that's going to have a big.
Like,
case.
you're pretty good, yeah.
I mean, I have to keep up with these things with international law for what I do, so I do my best.
That's very
hiring a partner. I might. The Chevron case, where if people don't know, it basically now being overturned, it basically prevents the SEC from having their experts come on and saying that they're
not getting deference in interpreting their regulation.
Thank you. So now it's a much more level case between who the defense is bringing on as an expert versus the SEC or whatever governmental case. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. The mother of Brett Kavanaugh, it's one of the Supreme Court's mothers, was actually the plaintiff in the case, arguing that the SEC, being the experts in securities, should have a better understanding, and the experts they bring in should have a better understanding of the overall field that they're an expert in rather than the defense. And so that had been the law of the land since the 80s. John Roberts, that's who it was. John Roberts' mother was it. And so since then, it's allowed government admins to basically dictate what they say is the rules because they have the expert witnesses for lawsuits. And that has now been overturned by John Roberts. So
Somewhat, yeah,
his
somewhat.
mom.
Somewhat. And it's when you have a challenge of interpreting Congress, you know, in a law, when the SEC brings an enforcement action, they would get deferences to them understanding the application of that law. And even more granularly, if the SEC has a regulation, they're given deference in the interpretation of what that means. And the undoing of Chevron kind of says, like, no, we're all going to look at this, and you're on a level playing field of interpreting what that statute means. You don't get an advantage just because you're the agency enforcing it, which is, and it's not just the SEC, right? That's a very blanket erosion of the kind of the fourth branch of government, the administrative branch, which is massive. And why it's really important is because the administrative branch has been a de facto one of the most powerful branches because Congress and the executive branch are always deadlocked, right? So you have these administrative rulings and actions that are kind of ruling the day. So it'll be an interesting. It was an interesting weakening of the SEC, but I don't know if that will be revisited by Congress. Who knows?
Probably not for a while, anyways.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I think we've got some people in the audience here. I think given the topic, it might be cool to take some questions right now.
Sure.
We're about a half hour behind schedule on the day, which is totally fine. But I think if we can get back on schedule, we could start doing some questions and wrap it up here maybe in 10, 15 minutes. And when you get on, can you say your name and address and social security number?
Yeah.
Wallet address.
If this was Estonia, I'd be willing to do that. Raphael, I'm in the space. I've been in the space a number of years, and I'm concerned about the same things as you guys, regulatory clarity, property rights, good legal frameworks, but the prosperity issue of how do we take technology, which, for lack of a better term, has been able to be monopolized by larger entities who could spend $35 billion of kingdom money to capture a market and own a vertical. The idea of decentralization as a parent, right? Being able to have everyone have equal access, or shouldn't say equal access, equal ability to be educated enough to access the space. How do you guys see the onboarding of your average individual investor who's looking to change the game going forward, understanding the housing cost? For you guys, is it a marketing leverage you need? Is it better branding? Is it more awareness? What is it that you guys see as being able to close that gap to get your average, let's call it real estate investor, who would look at a REIT or a syndication, but now can look at a distributed version of rebuilding the housing infrastructure that was successful in the 50s and 60s until we were able to buy, what was it last year, 25% of homes bought in the United States were bought by a fund? How do we move away from that?
I'll go first on that one. I think education's a big piece, and I think you're 100% right. Like, how do we onboard new people to this space, especially if it's going to be helpful? And so for us, it's nonprofits, it's real estate, it's affordable housing advocates. And so when I talk to folks who are not in Web3, friends of mine who are like executive directors at nonprofits, or they've been affordable housing advocates for a long time, what they consistently tell me is like, I think that crypto blockchain stuff is neat, but I don't touch it, and I don't know how to start. I don't know how to get started. Can you help me get started? Or they say, like, I've seen a lot of scams. I'm like kind of scared to touch it. And so what I've noticed at least is if folks have like a safe entry point, they seem far more open and interested. And so that's part of what we're trying to do is like, how do we onboard people in a way where they're getting a not totally guaranteed return, because nothing's really ever guaranteed, but like a pretty safe return on their investment. And we keep our security really tight. And, you know, like I think helping people take baby steps is really the way to go. Some organizations that you can look at, or projects that you can look at, are Regen is one, and Toucan is another, which sounds silly if you don't know them, but they're sustainability projects. Yeah, they're carbon market projects. And the way that they onboarded folks is exactly like that. They brought in a lot of people from Web 2 and people who care about sustainability. And, you know, they were able to show people that, hey, we can make impact in a new way. And we're removing the middle layer as much as we can so that you can have transparency and you can participate how you want. At Purpose for Profit, our goal is to become a DAO within 5 years, or to be fully decentralized in 5 years, which means that token holders get to vote. Token holders get to decide who's our board of directors. Token holders get to decide, where do we develop next? Do we go outside of the US? Do we stay in the US? Do we go to Kansas, or do we go to Georgia? Do we go to California? And so it gives you more of a say, or some say in what we're doing. And so we're directing together because we're putting our funds in together. And so you should be able to have that right. And so I think that's appealing to people, but it really is baby steps when it comes to onboarding. And I don't want to say it's marketing, even though there is marketing involved. Because I don't want to like, I don't want to say like, oh, we need to just like, yeah, we don't want to just like, yeah, get people excited about it and then just like kind of get out of the room. Like for us, it's really community building and making sure folks feel safe in what they're doing, and we're there to support them. Yeah.
I'm going to back that out just a little bit, and just in general, how do we get more people into crypto? And I think the biggest challenge right now for most people is there is not enough ramps to go from Web 2 to Web 3. And I think it was the Silverstone Bank collapsing? Silvergate, thank you. Silvergate collapsing really put a hamper on that, because in the US, everything runs through our traditional financial system. The banks are key to everything that runs in our economy. And seeing Silvergate go down has really spooked a lot of these banks from allowing ramps to go on, just because of the direction of a lot of these currencies and how they kind of go back and forth. What I will say international, because I deal a lot with everywhere else in the world, is they don't have the traditional finance system. They don't have banks to worry about that. And so dealing with people from Vietnam, Indonesia, even Europe, it is significantly easier to get on board because they don't have the basic banking system that we have had so entrenched for so long. And so for the US, we really need to figure out a better way to get on board ramps onto Web3. Yes, you can go through Coinbase, you can go through the centralized exchanges. Exactly, it's a way to funnel people through very specific methods. And I think we need to start thinking outside the box to getting more people onto crypto.
Just a little bit, since my son pointed at his watch and looked at me. I'll add only just a little. So it's not like a be careful what you wish for threat, but it used to be that Bitcoin was very punk, and now people are begging BlackRock to pump their bags, and so we kind of running into this situation where mass adoption means losing something meaningful, right? Not forever. Like at the core, the code is still the same, right? But mass adoption means big institutional players. It means more regulation and scrutiny, and so I would like to see a balance of specialized adoption and adoption that is, I don't know about sovereign, but I would say adoption that is innovation forward still, and not just an investment play for people who see an opportunity to exploit something good. Now that's obviously, that's going to happen. But, not to add anything to that, but it's just, there's something where I feel like there's this innocence lost with the adoption that it's kind of sad to see. I guess more of a comment, really. Yeah.
I think it's funny that we said more regulation, even though we were just talking about how much regulation. And
Yeah, it's like, oh man, it's like the Wild West leaving. No more Wildcat banks.
But you look at elsewhere in the world, and Europe's got MIFIS and EDOS. They've already got regulations around crypto, and we've got nothing, which is, we had at the Minnesota Blockchain Society meeting, we had that crypto polls group kind of talking about where each representative kind of stands. And that's a very important tool to know if you are a crypto advocate, know who you're actually voting for.
I had one. I just wanted to say, it's like what you were saying almost sounded like the lead into the next conversation about what are social benefits of cryptocurrencies. So let's, maybe we can get away from talking about things as an investment contract. Oh, we're going to make money. We're going to have 20x return, 10x return.
Troy, do you want to start with your name and the question? Because
Yes, Troy.
both Troy and Raphael here are going to be on the next panel. So
Yeah, I think they want us to leave so they can.
So Troy Benjakurtis, and thank you all for great discussion. And you sounded like you're advertising for the next one.
Did you have a question? I'm sorry.
He says, "Can I talk next?"
Well, just along that lines, it's like there's been this emphasis for a long time on like, what is our return going to be? What's our profit? What's our whatever? It's like, okay, what's our impact? How many people got fed? How many people got houses? How many people got something else? Like, how do we change that narrative in, because if we start talking about it differently, then it's something else. Like, I don't know if that's a question or what, but
No, it's good. I mean, it's results, right? We're saying let's have some accountability on these. This is our intent. This is what we're trying to do. But rather than saying, here's all these experts, here's all this money we're going to pour at it, and here is, nothing, we're going to move on to the next thing. And we're actually going to see, did this thing actually work? Did this thing actually achieve what we were looking to achieve? Because it seems in kind of Web 2 or, the current structure of finance we have, there's actually more profit in perpetuating a problem than there is actually solving it. So I think that's a really great thing to bring up, and I think in our next panel, I want to touch on that a lot, because I think finding those results and being able to see them transparently and not having it hidden behind some study with some statistics that comes out 6 years later that says maybe it did succeed or maybe it was something else, right? It's nothing. So with that, thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks.